This is Jon Lund Jr. at Lund Racing. I'm going to briefly show you how to do the LRX updating process as well as the flashing process, and then I'm going to walk through the screen menu items and explain each of them at a high level, and it'll just give you a video to reference for the future if you forget how to do something, and it prevents multiple questions to us. So when you get your device, the first thing you're probably going to want to do, and you should wait, is plug it into the PC, computer, or laptop. As soon as you plug it in, you first need the LRX Updater software downloaded, and we'll tell you to do that when we start, the back and forth process via our ticket system. And as soon as you have that software downloaded and you plug the device in, it's going to auto update whatever is available to download from the cloud. So if a tuner has replied to you saying your tune's been uploaded, then you would plug it in and it would auto download, and then the device is ready and queued up to plug into the vehicle to begin flashing. So this is the software. It's pretty simple, and in this little white box that you get with the device is a USB cable, and it obviously only goes into one spot on this, and it plugs into a standard USB port on whatever PC computer you're using. So in this case, for simplicity of the video, I'm doing everything in the car so I don't have to walk back and forth to my desk. And I already have the other cable. It's a little Ethernet port on this end. It goes in the back of this. I'll show that. And I already have this plugged into the OBDII under the dash. So let me show you this first step. So we're gonna plug in right here. All right, got it plugged in. On this screen, it'll eventually show that it's going to start connecting. It takes a little bit for this to boot up. That's normal. It's just how the operating system functions on the device. There you go. It's gonna start popping up a few different prompts. This is what you see on this. So I already had a tune queued up for this to stage all this. So it's got the tune that I put up in there for this vehicle. This is our 2014 actually, Shelby GT500. And all that's normal. So it says credits available. That basically is just an indication that this device is not married to any VIN yet. So once it's flashed, it's going to be married. There's some other features on the device that would marry it. I think the service functions that you could do would require marrying it. Once that happens, it's married. We have a way to do unlocking if need be, if the device gets sold, but that's obviously at our discretion on a case-by-case basis. So let's move to actually flashing the vehicle. This process also would be used for when you data log and you go back to your laptop. You would plug in just like this, and it's also going to auto sync the log, and you would just reply to the email ticket saying it's been uploaded, and then we would proceed with downloading the data log from the cloud and doing what we need to do, and it would just be a rinse and repeat process until the car is tuned, or if you're at the track and you're needing special support. From here, I will switch to getting it all set up, plugged in, and I'll show you the flash process. So when you plug in here, it's obviously self-explanatory. Just plug the cable in there, and if you have a windshield mount, you can mount it to that, and makes it a little easier to touch the screen. For purposes today, I'm just going to hang it off the steering wheel. Same boot process. It's not anything bad. You just got to be a little patient with it. All right, so this will be the first screen you see once you plug into the vehicle. So if you plug into the vehicle because you get a little excited before plugging in your laptop, you're obviously going to see this screen, but you won't have any tunes. So you could definitely go read the vehicle to save a stock file if it's the stock file, or it's going to save whatever's flashed to the ECU. The order of what you do things doesn't really matter, but to keep it simple, we're just telling people to plug into their laptop once they're notified a tune's available, and then follow this process. But you would hit I agree, and this is the first menu you're presented with. So for this initial process, we will flash the vehicle. So I'm going to go ahead and do key into the on position, but no crank. We call that key on, engine off. You could go into module info. It obviously tells you what to do. And it's showing what is currently on there. That's correct VIN. And it's got a scrambled strategy flashed. So now we'll go into programming. And it's going to want you to read what's on the ECU first. This is normal. And we prefer that you have the stock file on the vehicle, but it's not a big deal, because if we need to ever send you a stock file for whatever reason, we can do that. It just won't be in this slot on here. It would just be as a normal performance calibration, but we would label it as stock. So go ahead and do it. Okay, so on the last screen, it showed unsupported vehicle. And the reason it'll do that is because this car has a tune flashed on it already, and it's not a strategy that is found because it's scrambled. So that's how we protect our calibrations. If that happens because you don't have a stock file flashed on the vehicle, it's not a big deal. Just reply to your ticket, let us know, and we will update the device remotely in order to basically ignore that so that it can proceed with its proper functions. So I'm going to go back into programming. I'll do save stock cal, and now you see it's working. So I'm going to let it do its thing. This will take a few minutes to do a read. Typically, for any vehicle, the older ones tend to not need a long time to do a read, as the computers have gotten more space on them. It does take longer. Like Gen 3 Plus is 15 to 20 minute reads. So we do advise that you put a battery tender on it just in case. So I'm gonna let it do its thing, and then when it's done, we'll proceed with flashing. So as this is finishing up, I just wanted to also mention on the previous screen where we had the unsupported vehicle, I just want to emphasize that this won't happen, and it will just jump to this process every time. So it just all depends on what is currently flashed on your vehicle. That's why I mentioned we advise flashing back to stock if possible to avoid something like that happening. So it says the key off for 3 seconds. 2, 3, back on. We'll go back. And then now when we want to flash, so it did the save. Now what you could do is you could go and take this. You could have done all that first, and you could take the device and go plug it back in to your laptop, and it would sync that stock file and download whatever tune is queued up. But we do not need the stock file 99% of the time to send you a tune. So that creates a much more fluid, quicker process. It's very similar to how we handled the Engage, but you could do it that way, but this way you can just do everything in one sitting. So now we're gonna go back to programming. And we're gonna go to performance cows. That's what we had on the screen earlier, if you recall. Continue, yes. And it's going to start writing to the ECU. So once this begins, I'll let it do its thing, and then we can proceed with going through the menu items. Okay, so we're back. Looks like the similar screen to when it did the save stock. So key off, 3 seconds, back on. And so I'm gonna go back to module info now that we've changed the tune, and the strategy is gonna show differently. So if you recall, if you go back in the video, you'll see that it showed something different with what was on the vehicle. So also to note, when this is not mounted on a mount and this is able to rotate, it's hard to push on the screen, but I typically just use like the tip of my fingernail or the tip of my finger, and the touch is not bad. It actually seems to touch better than the Engage screen does, and you have a little bit more real estate right here. So what we're going to do next is I'm just going to go through each of these menus. You already saw programming. There's nothing new to show there. You saw module info. That's mostly just to see the VIN, device serial number, and then anything about the ECU. Typically, if it's, like I said, if it's a stock file that's on there, it's going to show more. Something to mention, if you have a control pack PCM, Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, we will have to do that override file right out the gate, because that's the only way it'll recognize flashing. If we do happen to forget to do it, you will see that unsupported vehicle message. So now you know what to do to email. It's not anything to have your hair on fire over. We are going to do our best not to forget to do that, make it part of our internal process, and once it's second nature, we shouldn't have any issues. The only caveat ones will be people doing device switches, so they have a vehicle flashed and they switch the device and they can't flash back to stock. So we're going to try to maintain focus on those to be able to put the override file in. Just remind us just in case. So this is self-explanatory. This is where you read codes, call them DTCs on here. This is where you do service functions for crank relearn, cam reset. If supported, 15 plus vehicles, you can do tire gear adjust, which modifies the body control module. 11 to 14, like this one, it's not supported. So if I go here, it says not available. Go back to diagnostic tools, read DTCs. I obviously have the key on right now, so it's communicating. Clear DTCs is very self-explanatory. Service functions, I'm not going to go through any of these, but there's going to be on-screen prompts. So anytime we tell you follow the on-screen prompt this is what we mean. It's going to tell you what to do with the key. It's going to tell you what to do with the engine in order for it to complete. So crank relearn obviously is one of those where usually you have to rev the engine and just follow the on-screen prompt so it can complete. That's for guys that are getting P0315 codes. So they put in a new clutch and it recognizes something changed, because typically you're messing with something with the crank trigger wheel on the Coyotes, and you have to do that in order for all the misfire logic to function properly. So we'll go back. Oh, I'll go back to the CAM is keep alive memory. That's for long-term fuel trims. If you clear that, it resets them. You don't typically have to touch that though. Trans relearn, that's for 10R80 stuff. I'm pretty sure it actually works on 6R80. It just clears the adaptive. Not a bad idea to do on fresh trans builds. So we'll go back. Now we'll go to, I'll do data logging last. Settings, all that's here is you can change the brightness. So you can actually just touch on this side of the screen. See how there's like a false button basically? The buttons technically run left to right, so there's nothing in between. So I'm gonna go back to 8 and then save. That's all the settings are. About device, it shows, we may have you go here if we need this info and you would just take a picture of it. Like let's say your sticker on the back came off and we need to know the serial number. The only way to get it would be from this screen. So now we'll go to data logging. So there's two things here. So you can see it says gauges and data log. So gauges is synonymous to the gauges mode, and logging does not take place there. It's got some generic parameters that you could select. So you could come in here. These are different categories. So these aren't the parameters. So you'd come in and do that. Let me see if I can find one that's logging with the engine off. Maybe that one. Nope. Maybe this one. Nope. Spark should show something. Nope. We'll go back. If you need to replace one, you can just come in here and replace it. Here, I'll show MAF hertz. There we go. So it's showing something there. Go in here. Coolant temp, that should show. There you go. Wow, it's cold in here. Throttle, actual throttle angle. And I'll move the pedal. So, moving the throttle, key on, engine off. So that's all this is. It's just a monitor, quick glance. But this is not what we're going to use for data logging. So for data logging, we're going to go to data log, and you shouldn't have to mess with anything under here. See how it's defaulted to engineering log? This is how we're shipping them, and it has our own custom config ready to go. And all you would do to start recording a log is obviously key on, engine off, or if you're, that would be the log startup. Or obviously if you're driving, the engine's going to be running. So you would hit start recording. And if you want to see what's data logging, when you go back to gauges, you can see that it changed, and you can scroll through here. Just hold your finger or thumb, and this is our custom config. And this is mostly useful for shops that are doing some diagnostic work, that are working with us, or even a customer. But we prefer this data logging because we can log more over using the gauges, because then you you are leaving it up to the experts to tell you what needs to be logged versus us leaving it up to you to go pick through a list and find it. So this is easier on you, easier on us. And this is where it functions pretty much exactly like the Engage. So when you're done data logging, you'd hit back, you hit stop recording. It's gonna save it. And that's one log saved. Now, you can do up to 10 data logs like that. Once it gets to the 10th one, every log you do after that, it's just gonna overwrite number 10 until you plug in, sync it, and it pulls all the logs off. So just keep that in mind. You can't obviously see the number of logs on here, but just kind of keep a mental tally of what you're doing. Best thing to do is if you data log something specifically and you want us to look at it, you're going to log it. We hope only once, because if you send us 10 data logs, it's usually not required and that's overdoing it. And then you would send it to us, or you'd sync it to the cloud, send us a reply to the ticket, tell us that there's a data log to download, and then we would go download it. And that way it constantly keeps your logging clean. That would be best practice. And that's no different than how I would have told people to handle the Engage. There'd be people keeping 300 data log files on there that didn't need to be there, but it would hold the space. And all they needed to do is go in and clear it after every time they send us a log, and it'd be much easier to handle. So I'm gonna back out of there, and I'm going to plug the device back into the laptop, and we'll let it sync, and that's it. Okay, so we'll let this load up. You're going to see two files now because it has a stock file. It's getting device information. This is still booting, but it's going to show the splash screen in a minute. Like that. That's how you know it's almost done. There it goes. Now you see the VIN that it is married to. It is loading the stock file up to the cloud server. And this is a default message, and I'm glad I'm showing this. You don't need to contact us because the process for this was based on a stock file being needed, but because of how we're doing it, we don't need you to notify us that your stock file's uploaded and we need to make a tune off of it. We are making your file ahead of time, so you just click OK. And in all that, it already uploaded that data log file that you did. In the case that you tell us it's synced and we don't see anything, all you need to do is disconnect from here, let it power off, and then reconnect it and let it re-sync. Sometimes it needs 2 cycles of power to fully sync everything off the device. So you can see that the device is fairly simple to use. It's almost more simple than the Engage, I would say, in that you don't have to drag and drop files to an SD card or anything like that. The auto sync functionality to the cloud really makes it simple and very easy. And you could see that I didn't have to deal with USB driver issues or connectivity issues. It just worked. Obviously I have a good internet connection and that's required, but that would have been required anyway in order to send us an email. So with the files attached. Now for the future, right now you can't download your own data log files, and I know that some people are going to want that. In the future, I'm looking to allow that through the Updater app. So you can actually do it with the log files of the gauges screen that I showed you. So you'll see this. I should go through this menu. But it's only showing 1 through 4. This is if you logged with the gauges screen, and we don't need this. So you will not be able to do anything here with the engineering log. But in the future, I'm hoping to be able to allow that, because I know some more experienced customers are going to want to use it, and that is where it would be mostly similar to the Engage, in that you could look at your own data log. And when you download it, it's in the .csv, so it'd be the same format. There's nothing special about it. So you can use any of your favorite CSV log viewer. So the other functionality that I'm looking to get implemented, hopefully in the next few months, would be a way to do some analog sensors. Now, the device doesn't have analog ports on it like the Engage did, but there's some analog to CAN bus boxes out there where you can plug some 0 to 5 volt sensors into, connect it up to the high-speed CAN bus, and it'll spit addresses out on it, and then we can just make the device listen on those addresses to be able to pull that information over in a data log. We currently use this on our gray car with a 22 channel box that AEM makes that allows us to log a bunch of stuff, but they also make a little one that's only got 4 or 6 channels on it, and that would allow things like that to happen. But that's functionality that would have to get worked on, and it's probably not too difficult to do. We just have to discuss it with the manufacturer and go from there. So hopefully this covered everything, and obviously if there's other questions that pop up that I don't cover, you can ask us in the ticket system about that, and we will help as best as we can. Thank you.